So we're talking about Class 1A construction and the fire separating walls. So passive fire represents about 3 to 4% of the construction cost of a building, but repair costs on passive fire represent around 40% of all rectification costs. In existing townhouses, we rarely find a compliant wall, and we believe more awareness and education is needed. Hence, we're running these small 30-minute webinars every Thursday. So, and as Al says there, it's all about compartmentation. It's the #1 preferred method of protection, passive fire protection, and you'll see why in this photo. So you'll see that the burnt building is on the ground, but the neighbouring building is still standing there. That's the party wall that protected is, am I right here, guys?
Correct.
And this wall wasn't even internally lined, was it?
No, it's actually an incomplete build, but the shaft liner wall had been completed. So that just goes to show that it's all worth doing right, saving lives. Absolutely.
And 79%. So we keep a lot of data, we keep a lot of statistics, and we think our stats say that 79% of the firewalls actually fail the initial inspection, but you know,
I think it's more about 99%.
Yeah, Joe's been here 6 months and hasn't seen one actually pass yet. So, unfortunately, that's too high. And of 38% of those, rectification costs are in excess of $2,000. Now, one of the really scary epic fails that we've seen, I'll let Jonathan explain this one.
Yeah, so this is it was eight townhouses, I think it was.
Yeah, 8.
Yeah, 8 townhouses where the carpenters have actually gone in and installed the bathtubs before the fire-rated walls were completed. Ended up costing about 84 grand to fix up. Could have cost up over 200 grand, but with a performance solution and a couple of other things that we figured out, managed to save some money. Yeah, the TBA Firefly drop-down curtains. So we sort of brought in another system there to make it compliant. But I mean, what could have been $1,000 to $2,000 on the original build blew out 80 times that. I mean, it's insane.
That's why we need to get it right.
Correct.
Exactly.
So what we're seeing more of, this is from a DA notice from the building certifier, specifying that someone with a QBCC license need to inspect and to certify the fire rated wall. So this is a big one that we're getting more of, that building certifiers are wanting us out on site to make sure all the firewalls are compliant.
Because historically, some walls were approved by building certifiers themselves. I think that was the case. Probably insurance now, it's not the case.
No, they'd prefer to have somebody with a passive fire walls and ceilings license like us. Yeah.
So avoiding these defects, we've got a few.
Yeah, pre-approval is the main thing that we like to start with. So starting on site, architects might design something, buildability-wise, it's not the case.
Can I just jump in there? One-third of our defects are design-related.
They are, yeah.
A misinterpretation of intent and assumptions, that be fair to say?
Definitely. Another big one is using the wrong manufacturer's guides or combining manufacturer's materials. So you really need to make sure that if you're using the Knuff system, use the Knuff install guide. CSR system, CSR install guide, it just makes complete sense there. And to make sure your installers are trained before they start work. There's no point in building 5 walls and then going, oh, we better get some guys up to speed on this because they've built this all wrong. Get someone in to train them beforehand. Even go through the install guide with your guys on site to make sure they're doing it right before you get building. Did you want to touch base on those hold points there, Joe?
Yeah, so we would like to come on in party walls before the roof goes on, just so we can see the top of the wall, make sure that it's been all the clips are on right, and then when the rock wall's on as well, making sure that it's nice, full 300 wide, which we'll touch on a little bit later.
Yeah, it's just a matter of making sure that you get evidence of the wall being built compliantly as the building goes on. There's no point in getting people in at the end of the job when it's all encased and enclosed and saying, oh, we need this firewall sealed because certified, because it's hard to do and you have to create some destructive testing, which costs more money.
Yeah.
So this is just another example, is it, of the picture we had at the start?
Yeah, so it's a good idea of compartmentalisation and what the shaft liner walls do. We're going to sort of concentrate mostly on shaft liner walls today. There's a few different types of walls that are used these days: Hebel, masonry walls, Proto panel, Pronto panel, Loxo, QT, James Hardy. But we see mostly in new townhouse builds, because of the ease of build and buildability, a lot of shaft liner systems being used.
There's 70 down the bottom here, you want to point out?
Yeah, so studs, just with the stud sizes, just a quick note. So 90mm and the 70mm stud sizes, 70mm gets used a fair bit, but what we see a lot as a defect is the air gap not being correct. So if you've got a 70mm stud wall, you still need to have a 40mm air gap in there, which creates your 110mm cavity size. And again, pull it down, start again if it's not right, unfortunately. This is just showing the CSR system. This one's a 6mm cement seal, so opposing bathrooms. Just need to make sure, just to mention on acoustics, a lot of times guys will just put in whatever cheap insulation they can find, but we need to make sure that if you need to get a 50 RW rating, you need to be using the AcoustiGuard, the 110. Just make sure, come back to your supplier and your manufacturer to make sure you're getting the right products installed.
And plenty of books you can buy, you can get.
Yeah, plenty of books. They've all got them, so just make sure you're using the right one for what you're trying to achieve on site.
Yeah, bang on. Just make sure they give you the up-to-date ones too. There's no point having a guide from 5 years ago because systems do change rapidly.
And not mixing manufacturers?
Bang on. Correct. Don't mix the manufacturers. The manufacturers have their own install guides normally. You probably get about 10 to 15 tick and flicks in there. What we like to normally do, if you just want to flick to the next page there, Gina, is this is page 1 of about 6 for our install checklist guide. Has all the details. We sort of do them site specific. So if you're using a Knuff system, we'll make it specifically for the Knuff products that you're using. Yeah.
Any questions so far? Anybody got any questions they want to ask? No? Okay. Keep going. All right.
So you want to pop over the next one. There we go.
Come
Let you have a chat about the clips there, Joe, if you like, mate.
So clips are the most common defect we find on site. You know, they're either bent, you know, they've only got one fixing into the stud and, you know, into the wall ends. You know, you need 2 fixings to both. You can't flatten them. And then, you know, you're creating a weak point. Therefore, you know, it's going to fall down sooner than what we like. The J-chuck joints as well, they've all got to be, you know, done as per the manufacturer's specifications. A rock wall to the roof, that's, you know, another big one that we see all the time. It's super frustrating.
A separate seminar on that one or again.
Yeah. And
separate dates course maybe.
Even fills, they're either not done at all or done totally wrong. Cantilevers is another big one for another day. And then just creating the evidence and the documentation. So if you're going to close something up, you know, we need to prove that it's been done right. You need to prove to us that before you've closed it, that it's all compliant.
Yeah, just lots of photos, lots of videos, keep it all on file. It's the best way to go. Just here we have just the different fixings that are normally used in shaft liner walls. Need to be checked because this is something that QBCC we know look for these days. Correct screw length, gauge, coarseness, especially in timber stud. Steel stud framing, we've got here 20 mil 10 gauge. It's normally what everybody uses anyway. Can also use the 10 gauge 10 mil as well. Just mention on the clips there that Joe was talking about, these are the standard clips. You can also buy now the flat bars instead of, a lot of guys cut these or flatten them. When you flatten them, you're getting those weak points. So, you know, buy the clip. This is some good details of these defective wall clips. This center photo here is actually the flattening of the clips there. You can see the crease. It's creating a weak point in the clip, and it's not what we want at all. It's just going to be defective and fail in the fire, if there is a fire. These ones on the right-hand side here, the guys have put extra clips in at the noggin height. Not part of the tested system. And it's actually causing acoustic issues and buildability issues because you've got too many clips in there. The wall's going to be held in place for longer, and the system's not going to work as proposed. Did you want to touch on that one on the left there, Joe?
The one on the left, I mean, they've just got clips into nothing. Those clips have got to go into your top plate, into your CH stud. So, you know, they're maybe there to hold the wall up when it was being built. Who knows? But, you know, you got to get your clips on your CH studs.
Yeah, and pull the extra clips out when you finish. No, there's nothing wrong with putting them in to hold the wall in place, but just make sure they come out once the job's done. I think is the big thing.
Is discontinuous a problem here?
Definitely in that photo on the far right there, that completely kills you discontinuous.
Probably already talked about this one.
We have mentioned it briefly. This is just sort of the different heights, different spacings needed for the different manufacturers. CSR 200 mil down from your wall top, Knuff and Borrell 150 down. That photo is a good demonstration of the clips being cut on the left-hand side there instead of being folded, so you're not going to have any weak points in the clips. I'll just touch base on these photos here. Far right, that's just Anycon fiberglass insulation straight over the top of a fire-rated wall. Instead of the fire-rated wall finishing to the underside of the roofing or the rock wall not installed, you've just got that right there. In a fire, it's just going to melt straight away and completely non-compliant. This middle photo is a good representation of where the clips have been folded and creased drastically. It's terrible weak points. That very close clip actually on that middle photo is a really good idea of what not to do. They've actually fixed the clip to the opposing side of the wall, so it's actually going to hold the wall in place for way longer than is required in the fire, because remember, the whole idea is for this left-hand building to burn away, the shaft liner keeps the people on the other side safe. So right there, you're just killing all your fire rating.
What about acoustics?
Kills acoustics too. And just finally on that far right one, wall ends, clips only need to be at every 3 meters up the side of the wall. These guys have gone and put them in at every meter, thinking they're doing the right thing, but again, not part of the tested system. It's going to hold the wall in place for longer than what's required.
Oops, sorry, I skipped one there.
That's all right. Just touch briefly the photo on the left. A lot of times there's multiple contractors building these walls. So it's not just your carpenters and plasterers building the wall. You've also got the roofers coming in over the top, installing the rock wall. You've got external cladders doing the external part of the wall as well. And in this instance, the roofers have actually fixed brackets across between the two frames to make their lives easier. If we hadn't picked this up, it would have been rock wall straight over the top. No one would ever have known about it. Completely kills the fire rating of the wall. This photo on the right is something we've picked up a lot on now, where we tell guys straight away not to do it. What's happened is there's a 100 mil step down for the concrete for the the garage, sorry. And instead of having the J-track run straight through, they've stopped it, staggered the sheets, which isn't part of the system. In this instance, we actually got a performance solution, and a fire engineer saved a bit of money. Had to install noggins, extra clips, got it all across the line. In another instance, we've actually seen this happen, had to pull half the wall out. So it was about 6 meters of shaft liner wall. Rooftop had to come off, external cladding had to come off, interior linings off. Big money to try and get it fixed, like 30 grand. So do it right the first time.
So this is one where the roofers have put the rock wall in and they've thought that they've only just had to protect the shaft liner wall. So they cut the 300 mil strip in half and was just putting it over the shaft liner. So as you can see by the CSR detail, that the shaft line's got to be over the whole wall, 300 mil minimum. So they come in 300 mil strips. So we just, laid rock wall the whole way along. So that was on 32 units, 32 townhouses, and luckily we got them at the start.
So we just got a question here. Why are the extra clips keeping the wall up longer a bad thing?
It's actually holding the wall that's burning up against the fire-rated protection for longer than required. So the problem there is you've got a fire source next to the wall for longer than what you want it to be. You want it to go as soon as possible. You want to try and keep this wall for 60 minutes, but you've got the fire there burning for longer than the required time is the issue.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go on to the next one.
Hopefully that answers that one.
So this is, rock wool, how it's supposed to be installed at the top. We see it done on the right-hand side on older style buildings all the time, and even newer stuff. The metal roof battens aren't filled, and they've just stuffed it in willy-nilly. It's got to be done properly.
Sadly, it's an afterthought a lot of the time. These are just a couple of different ways that the manufacturers actually say to install. So you need to, again, make sure you're doing it by your manufacturer's install guide, because Knuff and CSR are different to Boral.
Here we've got Class 1A party wall in an older building where the block party wall finishes at the ceiling height. There's no separation between the two units whatsoever. So there was the one on the left-hand side there was actually a fire in the bedroom. The little kid lit a fire and it burnt down to the kitchen below. Luckily, it didn't go up and across, so the fireys got there in good time to stop that. But that whole upper level was, completely black. It was scary to go into. So these are super important to get these right. And the one on the right-hand side, again, that was a body corporate inspection, and the owner was looking to sell his unit, had a building in pest, and then we come in after them and give them direction on how to fix their party walls. That block wall's cut at truss height. It's got to go all the way up to the roof. That's a big no-no.
Sadly, all too common.
Another one that's just fixed to the trusses. There's no separation there at all. You've got penetrations through it as well. That's probably the least of the worries on that one.
There, yeah.
But still, again, we see it all the time, and timber roof trusses going through. It's not, designing when this has been designed, it has, there's no thought whatsoever gone into that, and then the ridge capping as well going through. So these, on an older style, we're seeing a fair bit of it. The one on the left there, that's in a aged care. So it's not a class 1, but we do see that, not to that extent, but we see holes in firewalls all the time, untreated. You can do it, but you've got to treat it.
Correct.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're right.
Back on the timber in the roofs, can the timber valley board go over the fire separating wall? So that'd be back on here, I think. The timber valley board.
The right-hand side there. So 70 by 50 mil, Joff, is that right?
I think so, yeah, from memory.
Up to that, you sort of can. So there's nothing in any of the books that, allow that valley to go through. So at design stage, we've got to build our roofs with our fire separation in mind. Easier said than done, but yeah, typically no.
Oh, sorry, back.
That's all right. Just a point on these here. So class 1A, through the ceiling space, we can have penetrations in shaft liner walls, but again, run it by the building certifier and the building surveyors first prior to installation. I think is a major thing.
So this one here is in a garage. They've run the laminating strip well on the left-hand side there. They've run it down well past the floor joists, and then the plumbers have come through and run all their pipes. They've still got to build a bulkhead there. So that laminating strip needs to be more than 200 mil from the finished ceiling height. So your finished ceiling height will be that bulkhead. So luckily they've allowed for that. On the right-hand side there, I think that was one of yours, Joff. They didn't allow for the plumbing.
Correct. So they haven't allowed for the plumbing, haven't allowed for the bulkhead, and they've actually had to install another strip to the underside to get their height allowance down. If they just made an allowance in the first place, would have been a lot better. This is just showing the laminating sheet, which actually goes on. One photo on the right is just showing it done really well, 400 mil centers. The idea of it is because you don't have an exterior lining wall where there's joists or in ceiling spaces. So that needs to be installed correctly. A lot of times we just see it thrown on, tacked on without the correct amount of fixings, massive gaps in the joints. Depending on manufacturer, I think you can have a few mil gap, but we recommend just sealing it anyway. Just another detail of your anti-con running over the roof. Make sure the anti-con's cut back. Install your rock wall. A little bit about horizontal panels in the roof space. We recommend trying to stick with vertical panels. I know it's difficult sometimes because a lot of the times we just don't see them installed properly. Guys are so used to doing the vertical upstands, and then they move to the horizontals. They don't get their clips set up in the right space. And another thing we see with those is our steps in the joints. Over there on the right hand side, you can see it in the middle of the picture. That's one big thing. Different manufacturers allow for different steps. Boral, they have to be within 15 mil. CSR and Knuff allow them to separate a bit. So it's just one thing we've got to check on too.
It's just couple of wall end details where it hasn't been sealed to the sarking. So CSR, they've all got details around that. It's either, you've got to seal it or rock wall. So luckily we caught that, before the cladding goes on. I think we got there at, townhouse sort of 3, so they had to go back through and rip the cladding off, fix it up, re-inspect and get that right. So.
And the corner there you were talking about in this one?
Yeah, that corner. So the detail shows rock wool installed. So we've just got to make sure that rock wool gets installed to that corner. Finish it off.
Yep. These again, just a couple of other end details which we never see done correctly, especially in small townhouses. The guys just run the shaft liner out to the end, think it's job done, but you have to have the rock wool in there, especially behind the brickwork walls. This is one that I picked up on one day where the guys have actually covered the end of the wall with sisolation, about to put the cladding on. We cut the sisolation out to do a check. No caulking. They've run a clip over the face and not fixed it on anyway. The control joints are supposed to be at that point. A lot of the times manufacturers say it needs to be there. It all really comes down to the building certifier, whether they want it there or not. Again, it's got to come back to those guys. But we just need to make sure about having the control joints at the end of the walls there, as that detail shows. But again, we need to make sure we've got sealant, caulking or rock wool in the wall ends there. This is just a quick touch on mold. Make sure it's treated before the wall interior linings go in. We see it a lot. We see that not treated, and then in a year's time, well, not even a year's time, a few months' time, they're pulling walls off to try and rectify the situation. A lot of companies now out there that'll do it for you. Do you want to touch base on those eaves there?
These are just a couple of eaves details. The Boral and the Knuff one, a little bit different to CSR, so you just got to make sure that you're doing it as per the detail. Just do it, before the roof goes on. It's a lot easier than leaving it and trying to do it after the roof's gone on, and it's just a nightmare.
Okay, I have a question again. I think it's back to the previous slide, but you can tell me where to go. Cutting the anti-con back over the party wall at the roof, does this weaken the weatherproofing of the roof as you don't have sarking over this part of the roof?
It can. Sorry, it can. What can also be done is just removing the foil backing insulation and putting a fireproof sarking across the top, so you still get your weatherproofing there.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. Okay.
These horizontal projections are a big thing we're seeing nowadays with the cantilever walls. We'll just touch base quickly. If you want to go to the next slide there, Gina. So cantilever walls, make sure it's run by the structural engineer for the building before you start building them. A lot of times we've seen guys just use fibro to hold it up in place. Obviously, come fire time, that's not going to do its job. Guys try and do the right thing by installing clips under there or fixing steel incorrectly. I think on the next slide, we've got some Knuff details there now. Yep, showing steel plates. See there on the design, it actually says as per structural designs, because every building's different.
Yeah, a bit of thought has got to go into around how you do that as well. We just don't do what you think's right. It's got to have a design, and it's got to be done properly.
Exactly. Exactly, mate.
Cool.
We'll just touch base. This is our inspection report we do for Class 1A walls. So we go in before photo, any issues. This one's pretty good. There's all compliant, no issues. We've just got ticked yes, comments on what's happened in the wall. I think over on the left-hand side, there's a fix-up photo there.
I think that was mold treatment, that one.
Yeah, mold treatment in there. So a lot of times we'll come in, if there's an issue, take a second photo. Now it's compliant. What needs to be fixed up. And a lot of guys are now using these as their ITPs to hand over to the builder as well to show that the walls are compliant and signed off.
And easy enough to fill out on site with your iPhone or your photos, videos, everything you can do on your iPhone now, can't you?
Exactly. All done from the phone, out of the office, nice and simple.
Yep. Great. Well, that about wraps us up. We rushed through a little bit. I want to put it out there if anybody's got some more questions. You might just hang for a second and let you type them in. I've got a couple coming in. So I'll just see what this one is. Oh, there's a comment. Just great work. Good to see. Thank you. Paul Nash. So if there's no other questions, so we're bang on 30 minutes there, guys. Well done. We rehearsed and it was 45, so we did rush through. So our purpose is to educate, connect, and obviously transform the passive fire industry by providing these education. So our next webinar is again going to be run by Peter, and a very hotly requested topic is the really bad fails of penetrations. So Peter's doing plumbing penetrations and dealing with PEX pipes next week. He may also be joined by someone from our team. So if you want to get our newsletter, any more updates, if you want to know something about our hotline or how we do our third-party certification, by all means get in contact with us. You can contact any of us on the team or Kate, who's in marketing, and she'll certainly look after you with the right person. So thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Excellent. Thanks for listening, guys.
Okay, thanks,
Cheers.
Joe. Thanks, Joe. See you.